One. All right, Silver Doctors live on air. It is Wednesday afternoon at 12 on the dot, or 12:01, either one. Paul Halfdollar, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good today, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Looking forward to having some back and forth, as well as welcoming everyone that's tuning in. So we give it a second. Make sure everything is running smoothly. Make sure everybody's here because there's a lot of things happening. And I think a lot of people are probably really excited because they're seeing the price of their metals go up. So the question is, how high will it go? Or will there be another smash or slam or something of that nature? So let's get ready to dive into it. So as always, welcome to the live stream. Definitely looking forward to getting your take on what's happening. And if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, feel free to let us know in the chat, and we'll try to get to those as soon as we can. So, Paul, what do you want to start off with today? Let's get right into it.
Well, just starting off with where we left off last week, because it's funny, because last week we were talking right before the Federal Reserve FOMC statement and press conference.
Yeah.
And what were we talking about? We said exactly what's happening. We said, watch for the stock market to sell off. Stock market's been selling off. We said, watch for more downward pressure on yields on the 10-year note. We've seen yields on the 10-year note collapse. We said, get ready for gold and silver to take off. Gold and silver are taking off. You know, it's like, we're just a couple guys trying to figure out how to live stream. But how is it that we have a better clue of what's going on in the entire financial mainstream press,
Yeah, that's So clearly, I think either the powers that be or the people that are controlling these markets want to portray that image that everyone else is so dumb and they're so smart, or actually it's not hard to figure out. And if you just follow the trends and use history as a way of measuring future predictions, it can be quite easy, I think. So, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's not rocket science to figure this out. It's like there's some basic simple premises. You can't print money without consequences. That's premises number one.
Right.
Premise number two is, the price suppression and the manipulation, that can't last forever, right? So there's just a few basic things that as long as you understand that, all the rest just falls into place sooner or later.
Exactly. So it looks like the equities markets have been taking a beating starting Monday, and it looks like, as I've checked this morning, it's continuing. And so the question is this really the beginning of a true, which one to say, crash, correction? What sounds more appropriate for what's currently underway?
Well, it's a tough one, right? Because, my personal theory is that they're going to bring it down to bring, economic misery, financial ruin to the United States. Because I take a sinister look at that.
Yeah.
But either way, even if I'm wrong about what's coming and that it is actually a plan to bring down the U.S. stock markets into the election, even if I'm wrong about that, it still looks like they're trying to bring them down in order to justify further rate cuts. Because it's hard to keep acting in crisis mode unless there's a crisis, So I do think that they're going to let the markets come down somewhat here, just so that they can cut rates even possibly before the meeting. And it's funny, too, because, before when rates were rising, we talked about this as well, but they were like, they're going to raise once a quarter, right? And that was the standard, and they didn't even do that. And then now that they're cutting, well, gosh darn it, they're going to cut every single meeting. But now not only that, but get ready for them to come out and say, well, we technically don't have to wait until there's a meeting. We could cut rates at any time. So that's what's coming, right? The question is, how low are they going to let the stock market drop before that happens?
Yeah. Now watch this. What's the likelihood that everyone, I think, just hearing some commentary, they're mentioning that as of now, it's priced in that it's going to be half a full point come September, give or take, if this continuous trend. But what's the possibility of them coming in and saying, hey, it's time to start doing some asset purchases as far as quantitative easing or whatever they're going to give it. It could probably be like market relief or whatever type of term. They're going to give it a new term because they can't use the same quantitative easing because people don't believe that. So they got to give it a new terminology. So what's the chance of them actually implementing that before the next rate drop or along with that?
Well, I think it's stealth implemented already, right? So, even though they're not announcing it, I think they are supporting the markets, right? Yeah. I call it like I troll the Fed on this, right? But I call it like a 3-step, right? It's 3 things that they're doing. They're buying the futures, right? So you're talking about like the E-minis, right? Like the S&P futures, Dow futures, things like that. They're suppressing volatility, right? So they're suppressing the VIX, right? To bring on maximum complacency, minimize fear, right, in the marketplace. And then they're selling, naked shorting gold and silver. So these combination of these three things, I think they're already doing. So one of those things is I think they are going in there and they are buying the index funds, right? And, and the further evidence of this is just talking about, they have all this great cover in that, there's so much of this passive investing going on, so it's easy for the Fed to go in there and passively, or the cartel, not just the Fed, but it's easy for them to go in there and passively invest along with the masses. And, further evidence of that is we see the funds that are in these indexes, right? We see the stocks that are in these indexes pulling up the stock market when individual companies from the stock pickers or whatever are just, plummeting.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, and then another thing about my theory about they're bringing on maximum pain to the United States, into the United States market, is looking at the Russell 2000, right? That's the small caps index of basically American-centric companies. And, when we're talking about the deep state, we're talking about globalists, right? Yeah. So they're supporting your multinational indexes, the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P. They're going to let the Russell 2000 go. So you're already seeing that right now. And the Russell 2000 never came and enjoyed this massive stock market rally to new all-time highs. Yeah. The Russell 2000 didn't even get close.
Yeah.
I think there's more coming. I do think we have to have more downside first, though, because I don't think that the currency war in and of itself is going to cut it, and I don't think the trade war in and of itself is going to cut it.
Yeah.
I think that because they already know about that, they're already monitoring that, right? So there needs to be something additional added on top of that, such as the market correction, which would cause them to act faster.
Yeah, very true, very true. And so actually, let me, since we are talking about the indexes, I want to actually pull up and see what's actually occurring right now. And so the other day I was actually watching it, and once, I think on Monday night, once all the markets here in the U.S. closed, then I was watching over in Asia, and everything started off and continued in the red. And so as I thumb through some of the indices globally now, it looks like a lot of it's in the green, but yet it's all due to, I'm assuming, being pumped back up because of confidence. So just thumbing through, a lot of things are still closed over there. So yeah, so not much activity happening here. But so let's talk about the prices of metals globally. And so, we're starting to see some movement here, but yet around the world it's already been occurring. So, technically we're late to the party, or we're late to where people are starting to really realize the importance of probably questioning the strength and the value of their national currency. So basically it's a reflection on the lack of confidence probably in governments and the economy overall globally. So it's not just an isolated event here. So how closely do you follow all the other currencies and the price of metals globally?
Well, not on a tick by tick like I do for the dollar price, right? But yeah. I do know that, if you talk about like the British pound, I think also the Canadian dollar, I think also the Australian, I think the Aussie dollar, I'm not 100% sure, like the Russian ruble, like gold's hitting all-time highs in foreign currencies like right now.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I find interesting about that is, gold's hitting all-time highs in these other national currencies, but in addition to that, we're finally starting to see gold move in dollar terms, right? Yeah. And the dollar still hasn't even really begun its fall yet.
Right.
One of the things that I think is, but the dollar is not strengthening big time either, right? The dollar is still in this range between 95 and 98 on the DXY.
Yeah.
But here's my thinking about that. I think that the fear trade is on, right? That's something that I started thinking about a lot as we got towards the end of last week. And that was one of my principal themes last week, is that I think the fear trade is on. And one of the interesting things that I think that we're seeing is, instead of the instinctive, safety in the U.S. dollar, safety in U.S. bonds, well, there could be safety in U.S. bonds because that's how you could spin this bond market rally with the plunging yields, right? Yeah. Because so many people rushing into the safety of the U.S. bond market. But they're not running into the dollar right now. They're running into gold. Yeah. And in addition, since gold is rising in U.S. dollar terms, that also shows that they're going into gold with dollars, right? So, yes, right now, metals are breaking out. I think that personally, the cartel is going to have to back off of gold somewhat here because they're going to have to shift focus to silver, right? Yeah. Because I think silver is the one that they're truly scared of and that they're truly petrified of. And I think that if they're going to, because it's hard to wage a war on two fronts, right? Yeah. And they have a two-front war with gold and silver. So, they're going to lose on both fronts eventually. But right now, they're like what I called today in my midweek update, they're in their last stand at $17, right? So we're about ready to kiss $17 goodbye. And I think we're going to blow through these levels. Like people keep talking, I interview people, right? They're talking about 1750, they're talking about 1850. Some people talking about 2150. Some people talking about 26, right? We know the two nominal highs, at $50, call it, both times. I think all those levels are going to get blown through. I think we're going to blow through those levels and pull back to $50. And I think it's going to happen a lot faster than people think, so that, we're not going to be talking about, let's get through 1850. Okay, now let's get through 21. I think we're going to fly through these levels here, because there's a huge difference between price and value, right? And, silver has been held way below its true intrinsic real monetary value for decades, right? Let's call it decades. Yeah. And, there's a lot of price discovery that has to happen again. I ran the numbers again, and I like to do this because I think it's important, right? And this is an important point, so let me just stay on this for like 1 minute here, Mike. No problem. If you take the average, right, there's four precious metals, right? I don't, we can not talk about the exotics at this moment, but if we talk about the precious metals in general, there's four precious metals: palladium, platinum, gold, and silver, right? And if you take the average price of gold, platinum, and palladium, it's like $1,065 or something like that. I ran the calculation this morning for 1 ounce of precious metal. Yeah. If you add silver into that and average out all four precious metals, what's the average price for 1 ounce of a precious metal? It's $950. Right, when you add silver into it, right? So you take the price, platinum, gold, palladium, silver, add them together, divide by 4, it's $950. So here's my thing, right? You're trying to tell me that a precious metal so precious that barely, 25% of the world could even have an ounce of silver if they even wanted it. It's a precious metal and it's sitting here at $17. I don't think so. The price is nowhere near its value, which is why I think that we're going to run really fast here, because it has a lot of, I don't want to call it price discovery, but it's got a lot of catching up to do to its actual value because it's been held down for so long. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's important, right? Silver is a precious metal, right? $17, yes, that's its price, but that is nowhere near its value.
Yeah, and then you're just talking about the monetary aspects of it, not to mention the need for it for actually day-to-day use in every single thing that we use. And so I'm looking at I just pulled up the silver price currently, and just noticing that, let me see, the low for this last couple months was $14.42 back on May 29th. And then as of now, it is $16.83 on this chart here. But yet it got above $17.15, right? I'm sorry. So so that's a major loss in purchasing power of the Federal Reserve notes there. So it looks like the Federal Reserve note might be losing ground in regards to getting back, people realizing the importance of metals, or, as you mentioned earlier, running the safe haven aspects. Now, in regards to the bond market, because I saw some commentary earlier about people are fleeing for safety in metals and bonds. And so here we have, the whole treasury yield aspect, inverted yield curve. So I don't really pay much attention to the bonds in that magnitude, because it's basically you're lending money to someone that's broke and expecting to get it back. So with that being the case, how much longer before you think the whole illusion of continuing to lend money to the government and not being able to get it back becomes something that people consider an investment?
That's the tough question. That was a lot. Like, that was a lot in one. I hope it's tomorrow. I hope it happens tomorrow, right? Because we need to get rid of this fraudulent system. How long is it going to take? I don't know exactly how long, but I do know that the turbochargers have been installed just this week, right? Yeah. And how do we know that? We know that because we have now finally officially declared currency war on China, right? I remember a few months back, one of our central themes was, is China a currency manipulator or not? Because they're talking all this stuff that they are, but in May, they're refusing to label China as a currency manipulator. Well, just on Monday, after the markets closed, right? Because it's always after the markets close, Steve Mnuchin over at Treasury actually put the label on to designate China as a currency manipulator. And the key point out of that whole little press release on treasury.gov is that we will now work with the IMF, right? So we're going to be working with the IMF to, I can't remember the exact words. It was something with an E, but it was like to something, this unfair competitive advantage. What does that mean? That means that, if the currency war is truly on, well, what is our position? Our position is that China is manipulating their currency lower, right? They're pricing their currency lower than where the value should be. Well, what does that mean if you really think about it? If you really think about it, what it means is we're saying, hey, our dollar is too strong, right? We need to weaken our dollar. That's what that means. This is what's coming, right? All these people who think the dollar is just going to soar. I mean, I've been saying this for years, right? And I keep pounding on it now, but the dollar, how can the dollar soar when there is not just, this implied currency war from President Trump? I don't know if you can pull up those, that one tweet with those 4 tweets in a row on Monday from President Trump. But
give me a second.
We've got President Trump talking about all this currency war stuff, but now we actually have a declared currency war, right? So, I mean, I don't know how much more we have to be clear about this, but the dollar is going to take a hit. The dollar will be devalued. By saying China is manipulating their currency lower, that is inversely, right?
Yeah.
When people write and they say, well, in other words, or said differently, the same token, the other side of that coin is that the dollar is too strong. That's what that means.
Yeah.
So, this is all coming. So, yes, if the dollar is too strong and the dollar is losing value, right? Why would you want to go into the bond market? If the government is on an unsustainable debt path, which it is, why do you want to go into the bond market? If the government is, about to spend all of its revenue just to service interest payments on the debt, why do you want to go in the bond market? This is a disaster in the making and it's ready to blow up.
Yeah.
My point all along, I don't know when, right? I don't know when. I hope it happens, this year. The sooner the better, right? Because obviously these are things that are needed so that we can get better, so we can get whole as a nation, right?
Yeah.
But, I can't remember where I was going off my point there.
No, you were talking about, I'm sorry, 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry. I zoned out myself for a second. You still there?
Yeah. No, but just talking about how the national debt is exploding, right? And I don't know how much more clear it needs to be that the bond market is not safe. Oh, because that was my point. That we can never ever normalize. It's perfectly clear. And anybody who's been holding on to this, the Fed's doing the right thing or the Fed can normalize, it is abundantly clear that interest rates can never, ever be normalized. So just like we were talking about last week, there's going to be constant downward pressure on yields until it just blows. And when it blows, I don't think these 15 to 20% interest rates are going to be where it goes. I think we're going to like 50% interest rates. And that's even if the dollar survives, which it might survive in name. Who knows?
Now, the 50%, that's beyond anything. I don't know my history that well, but in regards to the actual borrowing cost, the price of money in reference to interest rates, that sounds like some hyperinflationary Venezuela, Argentina type, interest rate numbers. Now, can a reserve currency have interest rates, at that high of a number? Because once again, who's going to be willing to who's still going to want to lend when you got 50% interest rates or whatever that goes beyond the norm? Because that's not typical for a reserve currency. So basically saying that the heck with that reserve currency status, huh?
Yeah. Oh, I am saying that. Yeah, the world reserve currency is going away, and you have to be protected for that.
Yeah.
I think that is what's coming. We saw interest rates jacked up to 20%, right, under Volcker.
Yeah.
And my point with that is that was an emergency, right? And that was an emergency in response to the inflationary pressures, right, of the 70s. And all the chaos of going off of the gold standard when the currency markets, kind of where we are today with chaos in the currency markets and chaos in the interest rate markets and in the bond markets again.
Yeah.
So here's my point. When they did that, decades ago and jack rates up to 20%, right? We've been on this bond bull market for 30 years, right? So when it blows up, it's going to be far more spectacular. And since it's going to be in a hyperinflationary spiral, which I think is coming because no government's going to come clean and they're only going to print their way out of this. That's what always happens, right? See, when inflation is 40%, it takes a 50%, bond market interest rate to be able to attract any kind of investment.
Yeah.
So it's just like simple math that's going on, and the math is not working at all anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of, the crack up boom, right? Because we've seen that chart with the 97% reduction in the value of the dollar since 1913. Mm-hmm. So all we have is that little tiny bit, but that little tiny bit is the panic, right? It's when everybody's going to buy anything that's not nailed down, and they're going to take anything that's not nailed down. Yeah. I do think these things are coming. Yeah. Thoughts on any of that, Mike?
I do agree. And my only thing would be, if interest rates get that high, what person at that point would be willing to lend still? Because it's not, most of everything we've pretty much talked about has been just an isolated event or the U.S. And so not to mention everybody around us. So who's going to be able to actually lend and borrow? And so that's basically the implosion of national currencies as we know it. So
yes. And what I'm talking about is without a reset, right? Yeah. So obviously I think that there's going to be a reset, and then there'll be more normalized interest rate for lending in the sovereign bond markets. Yeah. But these are the things that I foresee, right? So obviously nobody would be, for lack of a better word, dumb enough to lend at that rate, right? When you're hyperinflating your currency away. So at that point, it's going to be obvious that it's a failure after the bond market blows up, and then we get our resets. Yeah. Which everybody knows is coming as well, because, this is history. This isn't us being some wild speculators. This is something that happens every 30, 40, 50 years. Yeah. And the last time it happened was in 1971. So just to jump on that, who would lend or what would it look like? Well, I think that's what's leading into the reset there.
Yeah. Now, one thing we forgot to do, or I forgot to do, so I apologize. So it looks like we have close to 250 or so people watching. And I forgot to acknowledge and to recognize the people that are taking time to, spend with us this afternoon. So let's get to some thoughts or questions in the chat real quick. And more importantly, for those that are watching, if you're enjoying the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up right beneath this video. Just hit that thumbs up button. Show your support. And then more importantly, if we have any questions, Paul, let's take a minute and thumb through the chat. Let me see if anything stands out and try to get caught up, because it looks like it's a lot of back and forth. So
just welcome everybody. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. It's been a crazy week just for society in general and for the markets in general. So lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, fiat's up. So just read some comments here. We got Adrian says strong buy gold and silver, fiat paper, dollars worth this. We got Jason says government is slavery. We got Patong says hope it will stop here. Get heavy and stay that way. Giddy up silver from Tom. So question wise, if you have any direct questions, make sure you highlight at Silver Doctor so it'll stand out, so we'll be able to see it. Because other than that, it looks like a lot of back and forth here. It says it will get interesting when silver hits $100 an ounce. Yeah, if that happens, game over.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was looking at another one about who's going to sell their silver for gold at when the ratio gets to 70-1. I don't know if that's the same person last week that said sell your silver for gold right now, but I don't know. I'm not selling my silver, right? Personally, right? Because I want to pass that on to my children or my grandchildren, or however that works out, right? In the end of it, right? But there will come a time when I do, if the ratio goes to where I think it is, heck yeah, I'm going to turn in silver for gold, right? Yeah. And then I'll pass the gold on for my silver. Then I'll pass the gold on to my kids, right? Yeah. So I will be doing that gold to silver ratio arbitrage, but it's not going to be at 71. It's not going to be at 51. It's not going to be at 35-1. It might be at 15-1, but I truly believe that we're going to parity. And I just talked about the averages, right? The average price for an ounce of precious metal is $1,000, right? Yeah. I see no reason why we're not going to parity for many reasons, right? Yeah. In part because of the averages, and then in part because people always say, well, there's not enough gold in the world, there's not enough silver in the world. But if it's a bimetallic gold and silver standard and they're valued the same, then it's like chocolate and vanilla ice cream, right? They're valued the same. So you can have gold and silver valued the same, and then I think that's where we're going, and then you have enough of the actual physical metal on hand. All
right. So not to cut you off, I got a couple things here. A question from @VidMatt. I know I'm saying it wrong, but I acknowledge your presence. Thoughts on platinum. And so Gold and silver, as you mentioned, gold, silver. You list 4 metals earlier, gold and silver. But what about platinum and palladium? Like, where do those fall in regards to the price discovery and ratios and stuff like that? Do you think, if people miss out on gold and silver, that platinum and palladium will be something that people will be willing to, either barter, exchange with, trade, or sit on heavy or what? What are your thoughts on platinum? Someone wants to know.
I like platinum. As far as the monetary aspects, I'm a little bit biased towards gold and silver because gold and silver are the ones that are named in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Let me say this about platinum. Platinum is a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
I think platinum is a wonderful opportunity for a person who has deeper pockets, right? Because we're talking about, thousands of dollars as opposed to $17, right? Well, $860 or wherever platinum is right now.
Yeah.
But here's my thing, right? Just like we're talking about the gold to silver arbitrage, there's a platinum to gold arbitrage as well, where if you're purchasing platinum right now, traditionally speaking, as platinum outperforms gold, because if gold's 10 times, in general terms, if gold is 10 times rarer than silver, and if platinum is 10 times rarer than gold, right, there's that same arbitrage opportunity with platinum, where if you're purchasing platinum now, when the ratio gets back down, you can convert those platinum ounces into free ounces of gold, just like you can convert those silver ounces into free ounces of gold. So, yeah, I think that the outlook is bright for platinum. Here's the other thing about platinum, too. I think that platinum is going to start moving here after silver moves, and I think it's going to start moving explosively to the upside like silver. Part of that is because gold is going to start getting away from people, right? We're sitting here at $1,500 gold, Mike. We're up like 28% since last August 16th of 2018.
Yeah.
So, as gold starts moving from people that have the money to buy those kind of ounces are going to start looking at platinum. It's going to put a turbocharger onto the price, and there we go off to the races again.
Yeah.
So, I have a bright outlook for platinum as well. Palladium as well, too, right? Don't get me wrong about that. I like all the precious metals. I just have that natural bias towards gold and silver. Thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, I agree personally. I agree. The fact that I personally, platinum, palladium, don't really follow it much, don't really, possess any of it myself, but it's one of the things where because of what's unfolding, it's basically just the end of confidence in currency. So because this stuff has the properties of money and they're scarce and the supply and demand aspect will kick in, they're going to go up nominally in price. I think everything that has the properties of money will go up nominally. So you're going to do fine in any of these metals personally. So yeah, because if we are approaching the end of a debt-based monetary system where people realize that holding digits solely and paper has no true value other than confidence, then confidence will be lost in all this other stuff, and then people will actually get back to wanting to actually hold something in their possession. And whether it's metal, pennies, copper, whatever, if it's tangible to be utilized and somebody else sees value in it, it's going to be valuable to someone, if not yourself. So, yeah, I agree. All right.
Yeah. There's a question from Frank. What are orders like at SD Bullion today? I know, people are buying right now. I know people are buying right now. And additionally, I know people are coming over to Silver Doctors on the website. My point is there's a lot of excitement that's starting to come back in. And I can kind of see these things, right? Because when I'm on the back looking out from Silver Doctors, I can see when the interest is coming back in, right? I see how many people are on the page.
Yeah.
So, I know. So, I'm saying right now that, yes, there is interest coming back into these markets right now. I could see it last night when gold hit 1,500, and I could see it this morning before I started cranking out my midweek update. So these are exciting times. People are buying. It's been so hectic. I was trying to get this coin, this 5-ounce silver coin, right? The Roaring Lion. It's really, really cool. It's like $110 and change.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is right now for that price, but we were going to feature that coin, but we ran out of time because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But that coin is a 5-ounce sovereign coin, like just over $100. That's a crazy deal right there.
Yeah.
But people are buying right now, and part of that is because you're seeing silver move, right? And silver has a lot of catching up to do, and we do know that silver is going to outperform gold here. So if you bought gold last August, you're already up 28%. Imagine what's going to happen with the price of silver here pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. And so,
that's if you're looking at it as a short-term investment.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's get back to any more questions out there. 65% of platinum is produced in South Africa, and that country has serious issues, possible civil war. Yeah, so that's another issue. Just on some geopolitical events here. South Africa. I was watching some events down there, and it looks like, I think currently or this past couple of days, they're down there rioting in the streets, and it looks like it's the police versus the citizens. You got a lot of foreigners coming in, and from what I saw video wise, it's not looking pretty there. So what we're going to probably start seeing as confidence is lost in currencies, inflation, because it's everywhere, but yet the way that the central banks track it, the very data measurements they use is clearly you can laugh at those things because everyone's feels different. But I think we're going to start seeing civil unrest probably if prices continue to go up and more people continue to lose their jobs. There's more jobs being lost constantly. There's a lot of people concerned about job security. That's about to be brought into question real soon. So listen, all those 3 or 4 things I mentioned, we are in very interesting time as always, but it's speeding up at a rapid pace, and it looks like any day now something can break. Something can break. I saw something about 2 banks in Europe right now having issues, so something's going to give soon, and it stands a chance to really spiral out of control in a very unpleasant way, to where people who have metals are going to feel comfortable financially, but what about the other end of our lives when it comes to food, water, shelter, security? Those are all things to factor in as well. So just my little two bit there.
Yeah, well, the people who have metals, we're going to be the ones that are going to be rebuilding after this disaster that the governments and the bankers have left behind, right? So, fortunately, that's the bright side to all this, and that's the good side to all this, is that ultimately gold and silver are honest and they're good. Mm-hmm. And if you're the one that was smart enough to have that, you're the one that's going to be able to help rebuild for the better. Yeah. Right, and that's a good thing. Yeah. And just to piggyback off of your statement about civil unrest coming, because I see that too, right? I see it getting way worse than what we're seeing now, right? What we're seeing now is horrible and it's horrific, but I think it's going to get even worse. But here's the thing about that, because we're still seeing these mixed signals, and it goes off what we didn't have time to cover a little bit last week, but it's still just as important this week, and that is Chinese direct investment in the United States. And I know you wanted to talk about this last week, but I don't know if you can pull that tweet up this week. But just on Monday, on Monday, Trump tweeted "currency manipulator" 4 times, right, talking about China. Then, after the markets closed on Monday, I think it was after the markets closed, he also said, so which is it, right? You're threatening them on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're talking about the Chinese are so great, they're so smart, they've got all this money moving into the U.S. stock market. Yeah. They specifically said they're bringing in investment into the United States. Yeah. Right. And then, one of the things that you highlighted last week with me that we didn't get to talk about, and then it's still highlighted this week, is that foreign direct investment from China into the United States is plummeting. It's plummeting. The Chinese are not flooding their dollars in here to invest into the United States. That's not what is happening. Yeah. So we have these mixed messages. And part of these mixed messages comes down to, well, which is it, right? When we find out that it's really the worst case scenario, then that's why something could snap any day just like that. And that's why I think something is going to snap, right? And that's why people are snapping. Because, when I was in the Army, I used to call it the rubber band theory, right? And that's how they used to treat soldiers, is like pulling on this rubber band, right? And you always kept it tight, right? And you always kept it tight because you didn't want to give the soldier any slack, right? So you kept it tight. But there's a problem with keeping it tight, and that's because you have to ease up on it or it's just going to completely snap one day. Yeah. And, I think that's what's happening right now with all these mixed messages, is like it's just a rubber band that's being constantly held and pulled back. And that can only last for so long. Yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot of things snapping here lately. And, it's going to be terrible because we're talking about not just the markets, right? But we're also talking about these mass shootings and all this other horrific stuff too, which are these manifestations. People are like, why does this happen? The problem comes down to this. Our society lost our honesty and our money. And once you do that, right, because I think that money is the ultimate tool, right? It's the very first tool, right? And once you lose the honesty in that and you go down the evil and corrupt path, well, this is just the natural consequence of that. Yeah. And since we're at the end of the rope of this sick perversion of our money, then what that means is we're going to have a lot more of these people just snapping in society. And that's a very scary dynamic to have to face, Mike.
Oh, my goodness. Very, very much. That's very true. And as you mentioned, the key to our nation the longevity of it, or the future of it rather, is the fact that we were hijacked. Our government was hijacked. If I want to, get real technical with it, our government was hijacked, and what was implemented was the bought and paid for political figures, special interest groups, mega companies, monopolies, you name it. All of that stuff right there has basically ran its course, and now we're starting to see the repercussions for corruption, crime, and the whole swamp. The swamp has gutted society, and now it's starting to be exposed. And the person in the White House ran on, his promise to the American public was "Make America Great Again" by draining the swamp. And so I'm not sure if that draining the swamp includes this whole debt default that has to be seen all the way through, which will be painful, and then hopefully rebuild something better on the other side, which I don't really see how that's going to work out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and just adding on top of that, and this is part of the mixed messages too, right? I keep tweeting out to Judy Shelton, asking her basic questions about gold, and I don't get one reply back, not one single reply back, So it's like, come on, they're not doing anything that's good for gold. The government's not going to do anything that's good for gold, which is what needs to happen, right? Yeah. That's what needs to happen. We need to get back in line with the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah.
The government's not going to do anything unless they're absolutely forced to do it. Mm-hmm. The banks aren't going to do anything unless they're absolutely forced to do it. And the only way that they're going to be absolutely forced to do it is because there's some nasty crisis that is brewing, and we know it's brewing, and we're starting to see those manifestations.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful because I'm hopeful for the rebuilding. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm not hopeful that it can be saved in the current system like it is now. I'm hopeful that we can rebuild it, and that hopefully the nation and the Constitution stays intact when we get through to the other side of this.
Yeah.
As far as the dollar, I don't know how the dollar is going to play out. Is it going to survive just in name only, or is it going to be a brand new name for our currency? That's a wild card right there, because, like I said, if it survives in name only, right, then all those pensioners still get paid. All those entitlement spending, Medicaid, Medicare, welfare, Social Security, all this and all that still gets paid in dollars. It's just worthless at that point. But I'm hopeful that when we rebuild, we can do it the right way this time.
Yeah, what I think, this is just a guess or my opinion, what I think is occurring is that Trump is deliberately disrupting, stirring the pot, pissing off everything that was part of this whole swamp nature, to the point where he's going to point everything's going to be pointed towards the Federal Reserve, and assuming that the Federal Reserve might be abolished as an entity and no longer has the authority to run our national, our currency, and to rebrand everything, you have to give it some type of, if you come out with a new currency, it has to be given something other than just dollar, because dollar, because the United States dollar is a reserve currency, but there's other countries out there that also use the name dollar. So we got the Bahamian dollar, we got the whatever other dollars out there. So a lot of other currencies labeled dollar. I think the word dollar will be very problematic. People may not want to hear or see a thing labeled dollar. So they're going to probably come out with some fancy, like a United States note, something like rebranding something that we used to have, hopefully attached to something. Or I would prefer actually infusing metals into the notes themselves so that you don't have to trust anybody because it's actually in the note. That'll be what I would like to see, but we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what my fear is with all of this, right? My fear with all of this is that this is headed towards a constitutional convention. And if we ever hear those words, Mike, it's game over. I'm telling you, it's game over. Mm-hmm. Because if we have a constitutional convention and they start changing stuff in the Constitution, you know that they're not going to change it for the better. They're going to change it for the worse.
Right.
So that's my big fear when all this comes out, because, and why am I bringing that up? Because gold and silver are in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Those are going to be the first things that get out of the Constitution, right? Yeah. Even though that they're not going to stop being money, right? But
I think it's future generations, like the future, the babies now or the unborn, 10, 20, 30 years from now, they will not actually. It may not be the old. If they change the Constitution, the old constitutions may not be in record books anymore. They're going to make sure they remove all of that from any type of documentation, so that there'll be no point of reference to go back to, so kids will never know. Just like today, in my son's, I think my son was in 5th, 6th grade years ago, whatever. I actually went through his history book and went to the back where they have all the documentations of everything, and gold and silver was not in there. It says something about I don't know. But gold and silver was not in that documentation in the back of his book. And I'm thinking, like, how do you admit that apart from the fact you don't want these kids to know gold and silver? So at that point, yeah, that's when I really got into trying to educate my kids and helping them get their weight up. But anyway.
Yeah. Excellent points. Well said. And, it's sick because, the Fed has all these comic books and they're in the schools, right? And see, I personally feel that we need to start thinking about and talking about the Federal Reserve differently, right? The Fed is evil, right? For lack of a better word, I think the Fed is a domestic terrorist organization. And I say that because they're sitting in there in our schools, and they're in our grade schools, right? So here's the thing, right? They're pushing all these comic books. They have teacher guides, right? They have teacher guides, how to teach these comic books to grade schoolers, to middle schoolers. Here's the point about that, right? You wouldn't want serial rapists teaching sex education in our schools, right? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. So why do we have the Federal Reserve in our school system teaching money to our children? This is pure evil at its basic. And so there really has to be a paradigm shift. The bad part is that voices like ours are suppressed, right? Just like gold and silver are suppressed, So the only people that get out there and that get that platform are the people who are like, well, we just got to make the Federal Reserve better, right? Oh, well, the Fed is going to do this, or here's how we could fix the Federal Reserve. There's no fix. They're evil. They're doing the wrong thing, and they're, penetrating the school systems very deep, trying to continue to do their evil deeds.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. I had to go off on a little rant.
I understand that completely. When you were saying that, what came to my mind was, at what point, how soon, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, when will there be public demonstrators in front of the 12 Federal Reserve district banks with signs saying whatever, like to where publicly people find out where their problems originate from financially, and they take it to the source directly, and there's actually protests in the streets about abolish the Fed, end the Fed, are the Fed. Let's just check Fort Knox, make sure they didn't steal our gold. Let's get into the vaults, and that's something I would be interested in seeing that. I think I might get out there with a picket sign and actually stand there and just join in, man, because that's where all this is heading. I think as people wake up, I think Trump's going to continue to point the blame back to the Fed, to where once we get some protests out in the streets, I think more people will be proactive and actually caring more, because as of now, most people still don't know the origins of their problem. Like I always say, in my opinion, your biggest financial liability will be your national currency, wherever you're located at. Hands down, because that's the foundation. That's what you get up for in the morning to go get. And if it's not serving you, then what are you working for, in a sense? So yeah, exactly.
And here's the thing about suppressing the voices that stand against the Fed, right? Is that in the mainstream, right? I mean, your average American, they're going to get totally blindsided by this because it's coming, right? I fully believe that the Fed will be abolished, right? That it's our duty to abolish the Fed. So this is coming. And, the mainstream is just going to get totally blindsided. Why are these people so angry, And come on, right? Why we're angry, right? Because they've been, destroying our currency since 1913, right? And, they get all of the power and they think that they have all of the control. And, I think it's going to be, I think it is coming sooner than later with those, 12 Federal Reserve banks, and then but I don't think it's really going to be signs. It's going to be more like torches and pitchforks. But
yeah. Now I want to bring to your attention something that I just came across, and this might be like fresh off the press, so it's new. And so it looks like, as of today, I'm going to pull it up on the screen. As of today, it says from Wall Street Journal, says trio of central banks surprise markets with aggressive rate cuts. And so it looks like the deeply intertwined markets of Southeast Asia has heavily deepened on trade with the U.S. and China. So it looks like India, Thailand, and New Zealand today, or within the last couple of hours, decided to drop their interest rates a little bit as well. And so it looks like like a quarter point. Looks like New Zealand might have been, a half a point. So it looks like, there's going to be some global central bank interest rate cuts happening all at the same time. So everybody's trying to get down to the zero or below. So yeah, so this is not definitely going to be well for those currencies.
And that's one of the reasons why I said only gold and silver are going to survive this currency war, right? Because it is a race to the bottom. It's a debt-based, unbacked fiat currency system, right? And it's irredeemable and it's unpayable, and it depends on ever increasing debt, which mathematically will go parabolic, right? And just like Jimi Hendrix can hold his guitar up and get that amplifier to literally catch on fire because of the parabolic feedback that's going on. Same thing's going to happen with these currencies in this race to the bottom, and that's what it is. It's a race to the bottom, but gold and silver. Because here's the thing, right? Everybody is trying to race to the bottom against the dollar. Mm-hmm. But what can the dollar race to the bottom against? Because the dollar is the world reserve currency. Now you're going to have people like Rickard saying, well, they can devalue the dollar against the SDR, but,
SDR I have my opinion about that. SDR is not going to help you and I out, that's for sure.
Yeah, only gold and silver, right? The dollar can only truly devalue. Because the other thing is, the SDR is a basket of debt-based fiat currencies. Right? So devaluing against one fiat currency or a basket of them, it's the same effect, right? It's still that race to the bottom. Yeah. The only things that the dollar, the world reserve currency, can devalue against are gold and silver. That's it. So, that's why they're going to be surviving. And people are starting to catch wind of that. We got gold above 1,500. We got silver above 17. They're moving, right? And we're looking good here as far as the metals outlook goes.
Yes, I do agree. So let's get into the chat last time to see who's any questions. As always, if you have questions, make sure you at Silver Doctor so it'll highlight itself in the chat feed so we'll see it. And then other than that, we've been close to about 45 minutes, so we're going to get ready to dial back and just basically pay attention to what's happening as it unfolds because it's going to be interesting. So between now and the time we meet again, Paul $50 for another live stream, ain't no telling what the prices might be and what might have happened in the political realm and as well as the central banking realm and with interest rates and all that other stuff. So, we will see. We will see what's going on. We got obviously 17. We got a lot of people predicting prices. We got 1750. Looks like people are throwing out there. That might be even today or tomorrow. So, yeah. So, just, as a challenge for those that are watching, we got a little bit over 300 people as always. If you've enjoyed the back and forth, definitely donate a thumbs up in the chat beneath this video. But by chance, Jesse M says, did you read the Jim Rickards book Aftermath? No, I have not. But I'm curious. I'm going to go get it today, as a matter of fact, because I'm curious to find out what his 7 ways of whatever it's titled as. Look, definitely checking that out. So no, I haven't, but I'll let you know what that's like. And so my question is, low blood pressure, does foreign currency exchanges to gold match our exchange? So does foreign currency exchange to gold match our exchange? Low blood pressure, I'm not sure what that means. Paul, do you get it? You see that?
No, I'm not sure what the intent of that question is there.
Yeah, low blood pressure. Clarify that for us. Not understand, not reading that right, or not sure. Mm-hmm. But my question, based upon now and next Wednesday, by show of numbers and digits in the chat, what do you think the gold price will be next Wednesday, and what do you think the silver price will be next Wednesday? Any takers out there that want to leave their thoughts? And if you watch this, if you guess correctly to the dot for both metals, me and Paul go ante up. We're going to get you a silver. We'll get you 1 ounce of whatever the silver deal of the week next week will be. I'll send it to you personally. So, Paul, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Let me put mine in there, too. Even though I can't play, I just want to put mine in there, too. So let's see here. I'm typing right now.
So here's the catch. Here's the catch for everybody's watching, for everybody who's sticking around. Gold and silver next Wednesday at noon. Put them side by side, and then what'll happen is next week, you guys will remind us, I'm sure, we'll go back and actually glance through the chat. I think you still can see the chat after a week, I think. Yeah, and then we'll scroll through the chat and we'll see what the prices are, and whoever's perfectly on the dot, then we'll definitely get you 1 ounce of silver for your participation in this challenge. We got the first Silver Doctors challenge today. So, offer's only good while we're still live. So if it's not in here while we live, or if you're watching a restream of this, if it's in the comment section, you don't qualify. Join us next week for next week's opportunity. But so that right there, that tired me out right there, man. I gotta put myself out there. I'll put us out there, Paul.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like a challenge. And
right.
But
Oh
it's
my
hard.
goodness.
It's hard because, like I always say, you can get one, but you can't get two, right? You can get price,
Yeah.
or you can get time. But
Yeah.
getting price and time, man, that'll blow up a
Exactly.
trading account right there. So
Exactly. So I like the fact a lot of people are sharing their thoughts and whatnot. So there might be one winner out there. So we'll see what we can do. But hey, Paul, it's been great hanging out, man. We're about 50 minutes. And so for everybody that's tuned in, thank you for hanging out with us for 45, 50 minutes. Definitely come back next week, same time, same place, and we will continue the party and see where it takes us. And definitely, as always, and I mentioned in the past of attempting to get a call-in number. So I actually got to get on that because I think, Paul, you really enjoy that, to have people call in and answer questions directly. So I think that'll be fun and an upgrade to what we're doing. So I'll work on that. But other than that, everybody be blessed, be safe. Paul, any last thoughts you want to leave us with before we dial back?
yeah, I think the metals are just starting, and I think that's obvious. Everybody's on a rate cutting collusion, as you mentioned earlier, and there's a lot more pressure on the Fed to cut rates. Bond market is looking like they're cutting rates, especially with yield on the 10 years, like 1.7 something right now. And then the currency war was just formally declared on Monday. There is a lot of pricing to do, especially for silver. Silver is going to start pricing all this stuff in. Yeah. So I don't think this is the end of the move. I think this is the beginning of the move right here. Those are my thoughts. So it's going to be exciting, and I'm going to be excited to come back Wednesday and see what we're talking about next week.
Exactly. Other than that, yeah, you summed it up for me completely. It's been a great honor to hang out with you guys. So other than that, be blessed, be safe, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.